2, 1.
Boom! And welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Mossberg. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
Yes. Don't be sleeping on that Mossberg. It's a great gun. And from our good friends at Pacific Calls, Mr.
Mike Nilsen. Mike, how are you, sir? And how is the great? You're sitting in the dark in the Seattle area. You are in this.
Yep, doing well. I'm west of Seattle, across the Puget Sound in Paulsbo. So we're about 300 yards from the Banger Trident submarine base. That's my northern fence line. So
another beautiful day in the Pacific Northwest, I guess.
Oh, yeah, we get a few of these every year. We have a generator and we plan for power outages.
How long do they usually last? Listen, I'm very impressed that you got this up and running with a power outage. So we'd have just been down for the count.
No, we probably have it happen, 4 to 6 times a year, and it goes for anywhere from 2 hours to, 2 days. Usually not much more than that. So we're pretty proficient at operating with generator power and getting everything. We have cords and everything staged, and generator on the deck all winter. So
are you going to enter into the turkey rodeo?
No, I am not a turkey hunter. Gosh, when I first met Trevor and Alex from Pacific Calls about 2013, they offered to have me come out and go turkey hunting. I have never taken them up on it yet, and pretty much just a waterfowl guy. I grew up deer and elk hunting in North Idaho with my dad, and since I've been living in Western Washington, I pretty much exclusively waterfowl hunt.
You could go hang out with the guys, though.
Yeah, no, it'd be fun to go over there.
Eat good food?
Yeah, and I have a son and a daughter that live in the Spokane Valley, so we do make it over there pretty often.
So you left Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and you joined the United States Navy, and you served in the Navy, and you're retired Navy. Am I right on that?
Right. Did 30 years and 5 days.
We sure appreciate those 5 days were the longest 5 days the whole 30 years, weren't they?
Oh, man. No, actually, I started at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard while I was on terminal leave from the Navy. So it was a busy 5 days. I was already down in San Diego working on the Ronald Reagan project back in 2014.
So you've been all over the world in a submarine, I guess. I don't know much. I just got some sub questions, and I know there's some things you probably can't talk about. Well, being inside of a submarine is not much different than being inside of an office, is it? I mean, with no windows.
You're right. Yep. You live in a world of fluorescent lights. So I've served on 2 different types of submarine. I did 2 fast attack boats where you're deploying and going out and doing God's work around the world. And I did 4 ballistic missile subs, which are based right out of here. And those, you go out into patrol areas and you just drive around and, keep all the crazy countries at bay because they know we're out here.
What's the longest that you were in a submarine for?
So, well, there's 2 ways to look at that. On the fast attacks, we would do 7-month deployments.
Damn.
But, you seldom went more than 3 weeks or a month without pulling in somewhere, getting some fresh supplies, ice cream. That was always a great thing. And, so that we pulled in more frequently, even though we were on longer deployments. On the ballistic missile subs, the longest time between sea and real daylight was 78 days.
Jeez.
Wow.
But
what do you do for vitamin D? Do you supplement that, I guess?
I'm sure some people did. I never did. You just do without, I guess.
You got to have vitamin D, though. It regulates everything. 78
right.
days? Holy shit. Wow.
Come out, they're getting a sunburn pretty quick.
My goodness.
Well, sunburn and depth perception. That's one thing before you pull in. They talk about, hey, all you've seen is however many feet at the most distance. So please let your wife drive for the first couple of days and get reacclimated to to distance vision.
78 days underwater. That's crazy.
Well, we did not return at that time. It was just we brought a team on board for an inspection and
Back down.
went back.
Down.
So
I bet everybody was clamoring to get outside for just a
sea.
second.
Oh, I looked up through the hatch. That was about it.
Didn't even fully immerse yourself in outside.
No, one thing that while I was in, and this has changed since I've retired, but we ran on 18-hour days. So you would stand watch for 6 hours, and then you would have 12 hours off, and you would just rotate on 18-hour days. So that 6 hours you were on watch. Most of my career, I stood diving officer of the watch, watching the kids that were driving the submarine, and a more senior guy who's operating a ballast control panel. And then I did a portion of my career, or started out as a radioman, so I would work in the radio room. And then we'd have 6 hours off to do maintenance, training, whatever, and you would try to get some rest on your 6 hours you were on coming. Depending what the drill schedule was and things like that, you may get interrupted. There was plenty of days that you would stand your 6 hours of watch, be up the next 12 hours, go back on watch, and to be 24 hours or more between getting to bed.
So here's my really, really, really dumb question for this interview. How do you get oxygen in the sub? What do they have?
We make it. We make
Same as
oxygen,
airplane.
and we fill oxygen banks, and we bleed it back into the sub. We have some new equipment now, which makes it and just continually distributes it in the ship. We have watchstanders who take oxygen levels to ensure that they're, safe, got plenty of oxygen to breathe, but not too much, because if you have too much oxygen, that
combustible,
becomes a fire hazard.
That wasn't a dumb question, Andy. My question's a dumb one. I'm assuming if someone farted on a submarine, it was there for a while. Wasn't opening a window.
Well, I will tell you, we have very good ventilation. We've got a lot of strong ventilation fans, and if we usually keep the temperature in the mid to high 60s, and lots of fans circulating air, so it doesn't last long. But I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a point of pride when you got people stuck in a small area and they can't go anywhere.
Men will always be men, I'm telling you. So my next question about that, because I'm really fascinated with this submarine deal. When you're down in there, and I'm assuming you was in the Navy for 30 years, so
in 5 days.
So you was through the time when smoking was real prevalent. What did the guys do on the subs? Because they couldn't smoke on the subs, could they?
So when I first reported my first tour, it was on the USS Whale out of Connecticut, and that. All the spaces, the radio room was about the size, probably smaller than your and Michelle's closet. And I was one of 6 guys, and and 4 of the 6 smoked.
Wow.
So be in there, and I have gotten more than my share of secondhand smoke. As a young guy, I took my time driving the submarine, and the ship's control party. Many of them would smoke. It was just something I never took up.
You didn't have to. You got enough secondhand smoke.
Oh, yeah.
See, I'm not a smoker either. That would bother me now. Back then, I was used to it because everybody else smoked around me all the time.
And that's kind of how it was. It did irritate me as a young guy that I would, brand new guy, they'd be like, all right, get some vinegar water, clean all the nicotine off the equipment. It's like, man, I never contributed to this. This is kind of BS. But, so that was my first sea tour. By the second sea tour, they had designated smoking areas. And they would do it in an area where there would be a lot of ventilation. And so, you didn't have it on watch stations. You didn't have smoking in common areas. So that was a lot better.
Yeah.
And then
Did you get to go through the Panama Canal more than? Well, did you go through the Panama Canal? I'm sure you did many times.
Three times. Yeah.
Now, is
I,
the sub is above water when you go through it, just like a ship, correct?
yes. Yep.
Do you get to get out when you
Very.
go through it?
What's
Are
that?
you in the sub, or do you get, or do you have to be down in quarters? Do you get to stand on it when you go through the Panama Canal?
Actually, we had picnics. We had steel beach picnics as we would transit through the canal. My first trip was on the Whale. I took it out of the shipyard out here, and we took it around to Connecticut. And while we were waiting our turn to go through the canal, we had a swim call topside where we were just parked and everybody'd go swimming for a while. Then we would, when it was our turn, we got on the boat, went through, and brought up barbecues and cooked out, and it pretty good time. You got a bunch of pissed off seals that are in their boats watching it, guarding us and escorting us through, and we're just partying it up, having a good time.
I just read the other day that they were having a drought in Panama, and that it's made it for some issues getting the ships through there because they used those pumps and those locks was all fresh water, correct?
Right, because a big lake, and I don't remember the name, but there's a big lake in the middle.
Yeah, and they're using it, and it's drought right now, so their water levels, they can't pump in seawater to it because it would kill the lake.
I'll be damned.
Just
right.
Some things I never thought of. That's a very interesting. You're a very interesting person. I can tell you've lived a cool life. When you're in the submarine out in the middle of the Pacific or Atlantic, whatever, I'm assuming that weather does not affect y'all at all. Y'all are down below enough. Does it bother y'all at all? Like under a hurricane?
So it depends. It depends on the conditions and where you're at. I mean, if it's a large sea state on the surface, we do feel it below, and depending what you're doing, if you're transiting and you're fast and deep, you don't notice it so much. I've been at 400 feet getting slammed side to side on my first boat during a hurricane in the Atlantic. So but most of the time it's not much different than how we feel sitting here right now when you're out on the boomers, the ballistic missile subs, and you're just cruising around in a patrol area. It's very calm. You really don't notice it.
Are you worried, like when it's jostling you around, are you like, oh fuck, I hope they tied the bombs down good?
Nope, that's stow for sea, Andy. That is a key phrase. You make sure everything is stowed so that it doesn't become a missile hazard. You make sure that everything is stowed so that it doesn't make noise. We're called the silent service for a reason, and one of those things is we learn not to make noise.
Yeah.
The submarines are very quiet, and people around us probably would not hear them. So the way that submarines get caught is people making noise.
I would think in today's modern stuff that with computers and stuff, they don't even have to use sonar as much. Is that true? Or is that something you can't talk about?
Oh no, you still need to use sonar. You listen for things out there. I mean, especially when you're coming up to periscope depth, you want to know if there's ships around you. You don't want to come up under one. You don't want to, have a collision at sea. You got to be super careful when you come from being at depth and coming up to the surface.
So now, what do you mean you got to be quiet? Like you can't talk on the sub, or like how much noise much noise would pick up on like a
sonar?
I mean, you can have a conversation, right?
Right. You don't want to drop wrenches in the bilge.
I gotcha. So there's probably not a weight room or anything like that on.
So actually, there is on the bigger boats, on the Tridents. There's good soundproof matting.
I gotcha.
Most of it is, it's like universal gym type stuff, and things like that. The amount of free weights are a minimum. Yeah. But we do have treadmills. We have ellipticals. On the bigger boats. On the smaller boats, the fast attacks, they're the fast attacks in the fleet right now are some 688 class, some Seawolf class, and newer Virginia class. I guess they're not so new anymore. but those are, in the 350, 360 foot range. The ballistic missile subs, they're 565 feet. So you have more room to have some exercise equipment and to be able to do some of that.
I've never seen a sub in my life.
You're not supposed to. They're underwater, Jeff.
I know, but I've always wanted to see one.
They're silent killers.
When I was in San Diego, we went by the.
You were hoping they'd be up.
I wanted to see. Well, they don't drop them right down in the bay and go out. They.
No, I know. You were hoping to see something in transit or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I've always wanted to see a sub. I mean, I've seen the USS Alabama in Mobile, Alabama. It's an old sub from World War II, and I rode in a submarine at Disneyland or Disney World maybe one time.
I bet that's authentic.
And I think it was a real sub, but it was just you didn't go underwater. I don't think. I think you just puttered around a deal. But I've always wanted to see one of so the biggest subs are 560 feet. You said.
Yes.
Trying to do the math in that. I'm slow today. Is that
what?
560 feet? Is that 2 football fields?
You would timed it by 3.
That's pretty close.
Yeah,
pretty
that's
close.
a big ass submarine guy. I would like to.
You guys have been to Seattle. If you stood an Ohio class boat end to end, it would be about as tall as a Space Needle.
I'm gonna be in Seattle in about 4 weeks, and if you're around, I want to take you and your wife to eat dinner. I would love that.
Oh, that would be terrific. I would really enjoy that too, and so would Bonnie. She's standing here off to the side, checking things out.
We're coming in to pick Payne up when Payne gets out of the Army, and me and him are going to drive back, and me and Michelle are flying up there, and then we're going to spend 4 or 5 days in Seattle. I want to go to Vancouver Island. I've never been to Victoria. They say it's a beautiful place.
So now, did you plan to go up to Port Townsend and then Port Angeles and catch the ferry across?
That's kind of what.
Or were you going to drive across at Blaine?
I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do as little. I want to drive. I want to be on a ferry boat as little as possible. I don't mind driving the countryside at all. I want to make this quick a jaunt across the water as I can to Vancouver Island.
Set feet and then turn around and come back.
No, I want to drive around Victoria and see it. It's supposed to be a beautiful place.
I haven't gone up there, but I've seen lots and lots of pictures. They do many shows on it locally, and it looks like a cool place. Looks like an old English city, right?
Yep, that's what I want. I want to see it. I want to see an orca whale. Last time I've been up there, we'd never seen an orca. I want to see an orca. I'm going to go to Pike's Market again. We went with the grandkids. I would like, and it was right after COVID. I'd like to go to there. I'm going to go there again, and then I want to go to Vancouver Island and see it. And I don't know. It depends how much time we have and exactly what day Payne's last day is. But I dropped Michelle's off at the airport at like 4 a.m. on Friday, and me and Payne are going to head home. So I'm hoping we're leaving from the airport, heading the house. If we're a day late, I'm going to go over to Spokane to the rodeo because it's that same weekend.
Oh, very cool.
But
yeah,
But I definitely want to come up there, and I would love to take y'all to dinner. I want to talk to you about Mexico because you just got back from Mazatlan hunting, correct?
No, we were in San Quintin down at Baja.
At Baja, because a good friend of mine, their trip just got canceled. They were supposed to be there
Logan
now.
And
Logan got canceled. Yes.
For what we were talking about?
He just told me they were told there wasn't a lot of birds there right now, but I don't know if it was more of cartel problems or what. But they got their trip canceled.
So that I would say it's probably more bird oriented. They were already transiting south to north when we were there, 3 weeks ago. And I don't know what outfitter your friend was going with. The outfitter that we went with, there was one more weekend beyond ours. So he would not currently be running.
Right. He was towards the tail end already anyway.
We were told while we were in Mexico that there was a lot of places were starting to have a lot of problems now with the cartels, and they were canceling some trips. So I was really curious. I was worried and concerned for you because I didn't know if maybe me and Andy and Tony and Trevor were going to have to go buy some commando stuff and come save you somewhere in Mexico. But how was the hunting? Because you shot a tarsal banded Brandt because Trevor showed it to me.
Now the guy that was with me, my buddy, there was 8 of us in my group, and 5 of the 8 got bands. 2 of the 8 got tarsal banded birds as well.
That's cool.
Most of the birds were banded up on the north slope in Alaska. Mine was banded in Lonely, Alaska. Probably pretty appropriate name if it's on the North
Yes,
Slope.
I would agree.
Mazatlan's north of Puerto Vallarta, where we were.
How was the? That's a bucket trip that I always wanted to go on. Did you shoot a bunch of pintails also?
We did not. We shot a bunch of widgeon one morning. So you mind if I take a minute and just kind of step you through it?
No, that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
I want to hear about. I've been excited about this. When you emailed me and told me you were going, and I said, when we get back from Mexico and you get back from Mexico, I want to do a podcast on this.
Yeah, so we flew down into San Diego on a Wednesday night. On a Thursday morning, a representative from the outfitter came up with a nice new 12-person van, picked us up in San Diego. We crossed the border. We stopped for some lunch in Ensenada at a fantastic taqueria. It was, the kind similar to a Brazilian steakhouse where they shave the meat off onto your street tacos and have all the accoutrements to put on there. Really great. We made a stop at a grocery store to get some essential supplies like liquor and beer. And then we continued the trip down. We got down there that evening a little before dark, got settled into our rooms, 2 people to a room. It was an older resort, but everything was clean, comfortable, nice. The bar and restaurant was probably 25 yards from the rooms. There was a social area to hang out at and picnic tables. The outfitter had coolers out in front of the rooms. They'd stock them with ice and water, and you could also put your beer and soda and stuff in there. They had a big dinner that evening. Everybody gets up about 4:30, and at 5:30, you're getting loaded into a boat at the dock. The dock's maybe 150 yards from the rooms, and you've got a boat captain, a bird boy, and 2 hunters per boat. They've got assigned areas that they take you to, and you pull up, and you just get out of the boat, go stand on the beach or the grass or the rocks, whatever terrain that you're assigned, and the bird boy comes out, builds you a nice blind, sets you up with seats. They give you a lunch bag with a couple of fresh, hot breakfast burritos and a thermos of coffee and cups. And then they go and kind of hang out, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away and wait for you to shoot birds. One of the guys that I hunt, so we divided our group up, so we hunted with 2 new people each day. You didn't hunt with the same guy each morning. The seasoned guy, he gave the boat captain a walkie-talkie. That was pretty brilliant. So when we'd shoot birds, he'd radio the boat captain and go, "Hey, we got 2 birds down at about 2:00 from the blind," and it made a real quick retrieve. It was the 3rd morning that my buddy and I each got the banded bird, and the boat captain was great. As soon as you went out there, he gave a big woohoo and held up the banded birds, ran them right up to the beach and gave them to us. The non-banded birds, they kind of hung on to on the boat with 2 piles, one for each of us, so they could keep track of who shot what. So that part worked out really good. Usually we were done with our Brandt between 9:30 and 10:30. So it was pretty quick hunt. There was a lot of birds. They decoyed well. And, with the Brandt, they're kind of sneaky. They have a cool call, but they don't make as much noise as a mallard would or some other species. Mallards, old squaw, they're noisy birds. Scoters are kind of noisy, but the Brandt are pretty quiet. I took a goose flag and a Brandt call, and I feel those helped. Mm-hmm. So, we do a decent bit of Brandt hunting up here in Washington. As far as we have 3 days a season, and we take advantage of them. But back to down there. So my buddy with the walkie-talkies, who's been there half a dozen times, he worked it out with one of the boat captains who he'd built a relationship with previously down there. And on the final morning, we went out for a duck hunt. Went and got platos, or whatever they call the ducks.
The pato?
Patos.
Yeah. So they ran us to back into a slough, and the tide was just right for that. They set us up with a blind, and they kind of hung out at the end of the slough. So at that morning flight, as ducks started moving, we shot 13 ducks, and in pretty short order, and they would, we'd give them a call, hey, come grab the birds in the water, and they'd run in with their skiff, grab the birds, go back out, and while they were out, they went ahead and built our Brandt blind and put out the Brandt decoys. So in about an hour was over, they retrieved us, put us in our Brandt hide, and we shot our Brandt over about the next 2 hours.
What kind of ducks were you shooting? Cinnamon teal, blue?
They were widgeon. They were all widgeon.
That's crazy.
Yep, a lot of widgeon down there.
Just in a little slough.
So how far did you hunt from Ensenada?
3 hours.
South?
Maybe 2 hours
Wow.
south. Yeah, 2 to 3.
I've been to Playa de Rosarita before, and that's a beautiful drive along that coast right there. So I bet it was a beautiful drive all the way down there then.
So we were not along the coast for the whole drive. We went inland, went through a lot of really poor towns. Went through some sections that were really dirty. People just dumped their trash on the side of the road. And we stopped one place. You get a van load of 60-year-old dudes, you're going to be stopping. We stopped one place to take a leak, and there was a lot of garbage around, and we looked, and there was a dog tied up to a tree. And he looked happy, but there was nobody around. That was a little concerning, but it was near the edge of a ranch with cattle, so we had hoped that its owner was maybe out working with the cattle and left the dog tied up there as not to spook them. But
what was the vegetation there like? Was there a lot of agave plants and stuff? Because I've noticed around Puerto Vallarta we flew across a couple of big agave fields where they were making mezcal or tequila.
There was some agave, some cactus, and we would go through portions that had quite a bit of agriculture, and I don't remember exactly what they were growing. I know we discussed it in the van going down, but there was quite a bit of agricultural fields, some big farms.
See, I'm a real nerd because when I travel, I love the back roads, and I love seeing farms and things in different countries, and just even in the United States, things that we're not used to having. I really appreciate. And that's what's funny. I get guys here that go riding around. I go, what did y'all do? Oh, we just rode around and looked at the farms and stuff. And I thought, I understand. I relate to that because I really enjoy that stuff. What was the lodge like? 5 stars?
No, probably 2.5. But it wasn't, because it was very clean. They maintained it well. The beds were comfortable. It was, very much older, the showers and everything. It was fine for what it was. Maybe 2.5's unfair. Maybe I should give it a 4.
Yeah.
But I was surprised at how comfortable the beds were. I remember commenting to my roommate that, like, man, these sheets must have been washed 500 times. They're just super soft. And then again, we were very busy, and that. You always sleep well when you're spending a lot of time outside.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Did y'all get the hell out of Tijuana as fast as y'all could, or was the driver not too worried about it?
Yes. Nope. Yeah, we didn't hang out there.
See, Tijuana wasn't bad.
Zip right through it?
Tijuana is not a bad place.
Yeah.
Did you go down California? Did you go down California Boulevard? You probably been to California Boulevard. Ain't that the name of it? What's the State Street or American? What's the big thoroughfare there? When you're in the Navy, did you not spend no time in San Diego when you were in the Navy?
So I went to boot camp, Radio A school, and Morse Code School. That's dating me. Went to Morse Code School down there, and as young kids, we went to Tijuana all the time.
What?
But back then, there was, in the mid '80s, early '80s, there wasn't a lot of rules about going. We'd just go across the border and drink and party and have fun and buy blankets and come back across.
What? How hard was it to get across the border back in the 80s?
Not at all.
You just walk across?
Oh, as a kid?
Yes.
Yeah, no, as a kid, yeah, we just walked across. No passport, no nothing. There was a bridge, and you'd take that bridge from San Ysidro across over into downtown Tijuana and walk, and go by all the young ladies selling their candy and whatever. Well, that came across wrong, but you'd have like a bunch of young single moms having their 3 and 4-year-old kids trying to sell you chiclets.
Oh, trust me, I know.
Penny candies and
I remember as a kid crossing the border in Mexico, like when I was 7 or 8, my grandparents had a condo at South Padre, so we used to go to Matamoros a lot every year when we'd go down there. And my dad would take me and Tony, and I was probably 7 and Tony was 5, and we'd just walk across the border. And there's no way I'd do that nowadays. But it was a different world back then. And even that boulevard, when I was in Tijuana a couple of years ago, they don't let the American soldiers come over there no more like they used to. They used to be just
not
at all. I don't blame them.
Last summer, I was down there for a little over 6 months, and we are down there being San Diego working on a project, and didn't really even think about going to Tijuana. You've got to jump through some hoops, being a shipyard employee to go down there, and really didn't have any interest. I was working 6 days a week, but I'm sure there was some of the younger crowd that went down there occasionally.
That'd be a dangerous place to go at night. Did you? What I noticed was going into Mexico, there was no checkpoints. You're just in Mexico. You go from America right into Mexico. But coming home, it's a line getting across the border, and they're selling every damn thing from car batteries to windshield wipers to tacos in the middle of the highway, because it's just at a standstill, basically.
So this was interesting. Our outfitter, our host, asked us, "Hey, do you guys want to chip in and buy a fast pass?" So for the 8 of us, we chipped in $20 each.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
And we got to skip the line. Now, so the Super Bowl was going on when we were driving back across, so there was really a minimum of traffic anyway. And this fast pass, I mean, we were maybe 15 minutes from the time we slowed down and saw all the people selling their wares to getting across the border. There was the guard spoke Spanish, and so did our driver. So they communicated whatever. The guard came around, opened the side of the van. We handed him a stack of passports. He equated each passport to a face, gave it back to us, and we were across. It was super quick, super easy.
So I've never been to this part of the world. Is there any separation between San Diego and Tijuana, or is it all just kind of melted together right now?
There's a highway.
So you get south of San Diego. San Ysidro is the border town.
Right. I see that.
That goes to Tijuana, and that
got power. Maybe. Oh, it's gone.
Yeah, it looks
almost.
Oh, is that just flickering?
Yeah, I saw it come on the television.
All right. There goes the
Rex.
There goes the little robot vacuum.
There you go.
But
things are looking up.
So, no kidding. So there is, really, other than the border and the fences and all that, no separation.
Right, because I'm looking at it on the map right here, and like you said, it's San Diego, then San Ysidro, and then it's just Tijuana. So I didn't know if it ever felt like you were out of a municipality.
You knew it immediately because it got much dirtier. That part of San Diego does have, there's homeless tents and some garbage on the side of the highway. But boy, once you get into Mexico, it gets a good bit dirtier.
Right, but you're not driving for 20 miles in the desert before you hit Tijuana. It's pretty much just all melted together.
It's like San Diego to Los Angeles.
It is all melted together.
Same way.
I've never been
going
there.
from that southern town of San Ysidro to Tijuana in just a blink of an eye.
Right.
When you leave Tijuana, you're going to be in traffic till you get north between San Francisco and Los Angeles. It's going to be just neighborhoods and houses and all kinds of stuff.
Really?
Well, till you get above Bakersfield.
Yeah.
between Bakersfield and Sacramento is a lot of agriculture. And so my first job with the shipyard was to go down and work on the Ronald Reagan, as I said earlier. And I rode my Harley down. So I wanted to have my bike down there through the winter. And boy, once you get through Washington and Oregon, the State Patrol is pretty on top of it for speeding, and that very northern part of California too. But that area between Sacramento and Bakersfield is like no man's land, and the flow of traffic is 85 to 95, and nobody cares. It was pretty interesting. When I was running 80 and getting past, I figured, what the heck, might as well open it up. But
you wear a helmet?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Now I will curtail that with saying, we've done 4 or 5 trips to Sturgis, and running around town I don't, but the definitely on the highway and Washington, Oregon, and California, it's the law. So
it is now.
Pardon?
Is it the law here in Texas?
You don't have to wear a helmet in Texas if you have a medical waiver.
What would the medical waiver be?
You have to have some kind of insurance waiver that shows that if you're on your own, basically. So your health insurance don't.
When did they make that law?
It's been that way here for a long time.
No, Mike.
Yeah, Florida's had that for a couple of decades at least too.
When you first started riding, did you have to have a helmet? Was it the law then also?
No, I grew up riding in North Idaho. We had dirt bikes. We'd go ride on the mountain above us. I got my first street bike at 15. In Idaho, you can get a driver's license at 14. And so most of my senior year, I rode a street bike if it wasn't too cold or snowing. So, but we didn't need helmets there.
Yeah,
and,
Mike's the same
I
generation.
was young enough and dumb enough, and then my first real duty station in Connecticut, there was no helmet laws there either.
And you also grew up like I did. I didn't have to wear a seatbelt till I was 18. When I first got my driver's license, we didn't have to wear seatbelts.
I think that passed.
So 1 January 85 is when the seatbelt law kicked in.
When was it?
1 January 85.
That would be about right.
Because I was driving back from home in Idaho to Connecticut. So I finished up my initial radioman training in San Diego in December of 84, went home to Idaho for Christmas, and then proceeded to Connecticut for sub school and electronics school. And that was when it kicked in, because I'd never worn seatbelts up to that point. And they still had a couple of years of grace periods, I think. When I got to my first submarine, I wanted to be able to carry my dirt bike, so I bought a 71 El Camino. It didn't have seat belts, so I just bought a couple of $4 seat belts that I could throw across my lap. They were never bolted in, but it got me through the gate at the base.
I think my first vehicle I had that had a lap belt was probably I bought a new pickup in 1996 or 97, and I think that's the first vehicle I ever had that had an actual not a lap belt, a chest belt or whatever, what you have nowadays.
Chest harness kind of.
My first vehicles only had laps, and my first pickup I had didn't have fucking seatbelt in it at all. It was like a 71 Ford pickup, and I don't think it didn't have belts in it even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that same with that El Camino.
That was a good car. Boy, a buddy of mine had an El Camino too. We had a lot of fun in that damn thing. Woof.
Well, that worked out really good because I had a dirt bike and I could carry it around. When I went down to Morse Code School from my first submarine, I threw I had a IT 465 Yamaha dirt bike and threw that in the back and took it down there. And every weekend I'd be out at the desert riding around. There was a place called Palm Avenue. It was right on the Mexican border. Miles and miles of desert. It was the same place that Ricky Carmichael and all the different Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki teams went and did their practicing and testing, because they were all based out of El Cajon, California at that time, late 70s, early 80s. And we'd see all the green trucks for the Emigre driving around, trying to, you know, herd the illegals back across the border.
Did you said you went to Morse code school? I'm assuming they don't even have a Morse code school anymore, do they?
No.
Oh, they don't? They got rid of it?
I mean,
Yeah, no, the military doesn't teach it anymore. It's definitely a lost art.
Why'd they get rid of it?
don't need it.
Yeah, the satellite comms and other frequencies of communications.
What if that goes down?
Are reliable? They're reliable enough that the military felt we don't need Morse code anymore.
What if like a nuclear attack or something and all the grid crashes and then we have no way of...
We have older gentlemen like Mike that still know how to do it.
Mike comes back into play.
Yeah, they'd have to pay me pretty well and give me a month or two to refresh myself. I could still pick up a newspaper and read it to myself as I'm going through it, but yeah, it's a perishable skill. You know, and in the military, or at least in the Navy, they teach you you're at a keyboard and you got your headphones on and they play the tape and you hit a key, you hear a character hit a key. My brother-in-law was a avid ham, and he'd have me come over. Oh, listen to this. What are they saying? It's like, I don't know. I don't correlate writing an alphabet letter to listening to it. I'm used to hearing a character hitting a key. To graduate, we had to be able to do 22 words a minute receive and 18 words a minute send. And
so how do you know when the word's over? Is there a brief pause, and that's how you know? Okay, that word's spelled out.
Right. Yeah. You have pauses between the letters. You know, did is R, and then there'd be a slight pause. And as you got faster, the pauses obviously were shorter.
I'd screw it all up.
It's not that hard. They would give in radio A school. They would give an aptitude test. And so they would get, some of the kids would go right from Radium and A school to Morse code school. I reported to the submarine, went through electronics school, some specific equipment school, basic enlisted sub school, went to my boat, and they said, hey, we need a couple of Morse code operators. So I was one of the guys who got sent down to do that. But back in the mid 80s, we still would receive message traffic in some instances in Morse code.
Nowadays they have cyber stuff, so it's a different deal.
Did they get rid of Morse code while you were still in the military?
Yes.
Or were you like, well, this was just a colossal waste of time?
No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. I was a Boy Scout growing up, and so my dad went to sea for 38 years. Over 30 of it was with the military Sea Lift Command, and he brought me home a practice key when I was about 10 years old. So I had a practice key and a list of the characters, and in the back of my, I even think it was at the back of my Boy Scout handbook, and I played around with it from the time I was 10 to 12 or 13. And then that old practice key, it was so old it had a fabric covered plug. Jeff may remember some things with those. And I went to plug it in one day, and it knocked me back. That cloth covered plug had gotten too thin. Anyway, I got a good shock after that. My dad just cut the cord, threw the whole thing away. But, guess he didn't want to come down to the basement where I had kept all that stuff and find me dead. So
got rid of it.
Back in the old days, now this has nothing to do with you. I'm just curious. Back when they used to do Morse code and send telegraphs back in the Western days, would they have to they'd send that thing from station to station to station to get down the line, didn't they? That's how they had to do it?
I would assume so. I mean, I don't know what kind of distance that could cover. I mean, if you were trying to send something from New York to North Dakota or South Dakota or something, that I'm thinking back to Deadwood when they brought in
Yes.
the telegraph, and everybody was kind of nay-naying it. But yeah, I would assume that it probably got relayed a couple of times between the East Coast and there.
Imagine that was just cutting edge. And I've always understood the telegraph and the Morse code. I've never did understand on the ships how they could do the lights and make them. Was that the same thing, doing Morse code through lights when they do from?
So that flashing light,
Yes.
yes, it is Morse code.
That's always amazes me when you watch Midway and all them stuffs, and they're doing it with the ships back and forth, and it would just I used to love to talk to my grandpa about stuff like that. Young kids today, and I say young kids, I'm talking kids from about 12 years old to 30. If you're 30 years old, you're still a kid to me because I'm old now. But talk to old people and listen to their stories about the way things used to be. It's the greatest knowledge you'll ever learn, and it's such great stories that you can pass down to your kids. Because I miss talking to old people. I really do. Now I'm one of the old people.
Oh yeah, so I was a late in life kid for my parents. My dad was born in 1921, and my mom in 1927. So growing up, a lot of my friends, their grandparents were the age of my parents, and my dad was born in Norway and immigrated to the United States in 1941.
Wow.
And he had been from the time he was 14, for the next 6 years, he was on Norwegian merchant marine ships, immigrated to the United States, and joined the U.S. Coast Guard. And so he was in the Coast Guard through World War II, went to the Brooklyn Navigation Academy, got his officer's paper, or Merchant Marine Academy, got his officer's papers, and went to work for the Military Sealift Command, which at that time was the Army Navy Transport Service, and finished a career with them the last 18 years. He was a captain on those ships, but he served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Wow. Is that how you said he was born in Norway?
Yes. Yeah.
And then he came over here in, you said 41?
Yep.
Is that how how did he get his citizenship? By serving in the military?
I've never asked that specifically. I would assume so. And and my grandparents had immigrated over in 1935. My dad was already going to sea, and so, yeah, I would assume it was through the military.
Have you been back to Norway ever?
Yeah, we used to go every other year when I was a kid, and stay with family in the southern islands down there. And then Bonnie and I, along with my best buddy and his family, we all went over and did a cruise from this about midway up in Norway up to North Cape. It was a 13-day cruise with 10 or 11 ports. Really cool World War II museums about how the Nazis had basically taken over cities in Norway. First time I ever saw my dad cry was when we went to Oslo when I was about 10 years old, and we went to the Norwegian Freedom Fighters Museum, and they had a wall there where the Nazis would line up the Norwegian freedom fighters and just shoot them against this wall. And he had lost friends there. There's a movie out that I think you guys would really enjoy. It's called War Sailor, and it talks about how Norwegian merchant marine ships were, that the Russian U-boats were taking out the Norwegian merchant marine ships. But it's a longer movie, and it kind of follows one guy's journey up through this and being on a ship that got attacked, and how that affected him for the rest of his life.
War Sailors?
It's on Netflix.
Good movie.
I'll have to check it out. There's another World War II movie there, and I can't think of the name of it, but and it's based on a true story. But the Germans were building their U-boats in the fjords up there, and to attack this deal, they had to go. It was a hard. I'm trying to think the word. It was a hard sortie for the fighter guys. They had to come in and drop in, and then pull up real quick, and then send them. But it's a really good movie, and I wish I could think of the name of it. But that was a lot of very important battles that took place there to knock the Germans off, to get them off their game in Norway and Finland and stuff.
Yeah, that those fjords are no joke. They are deep and, like you said, very, very steep sides on them.
So
We took the cruise ship into a couple of the larger ones and did excursions in the towns near there. Super good cruise up at North Cape. That's the northernmost point in Europe. Obviously the what is it? The lights that you see up in the
Northern Lights.
The Northern Lights were real bright up there, and we did a king crab fishing excursion that was pretty fun up there. But
did y'all ever do any rescue missions when you was on a sub? And I'm not talking
No.
about military. I'm just talking about a ship in distress or anything like that.
No, not while I was there. We didn't help other people like that, but had some interesting scenarios of having to get people off. If we got a message that somebody's wife or child was ill, and we'd have to get them off in places that maybe had bad weather or not ideal to surface, and have a helicopter come get them. It's pretty. Submarines were not meant to be on the surface, and in some weather conditions, it's real tough. And when you're trying to get a helicopter with a stretcher come down to load somebody on it, can be pretty challenging. You want your most experienced people topside, and everybody gets clipped into a rail that runs the length of the boat. So that way, if you get a big wave or the boat takes a roll, you're not gonna go over and be lost. So
I gotta imagine a medical emergency at the bottom of the ocean is a scary deal to see.
Right, and you every off crew, every pre-deployment, everybody goes through a really thorough medical screening to make sure you're healthy enough to go do that. Now on the fast boats, like I said, we would pull in every 3 to 4 weeks at a minimum. And, so you had the ability to do that. On the ballistic missile subs, when we'd go out for maybe a few months at a time, and that's not as common.
Yeah.
So
I just mean like an emergency appendix burst or something like that. And it's like, ooh, shit.
So we have an independent duty corpsman on board, which would be the equivalent of like a physician assistant. And they're trained to deal with that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's they could do an appendectomy if they had to. Certainly not preferable. Anything less, if somebody was developing bad circumstances, we would find a way to get them off and get them to medical attention.
Yeah.
We my time on board, we didn't have too many bad things. I mean, we had some, and so it was. We had the clamshells. When you rig the bridge for dive, you shut these large metal clamshells, and we had one come down on a guy's head.
Ooh.
And that was a pretty good gash. We had a guy get his leg cut while he was on watch, and that required 20-some stitches. But most things, it's kind of the big joke is if it's above the waist, you get Motrin. Below the waist, you get foot powder.
So when you go to Norway, is it a tough language to pick up on when other people are speaking it?
So my grandparents spoke some combination of broken English and Norwegian.
Yeah.
My dad would speak to me in Norwegian. When I was a kid, my parents were active in Sons of Norway, and they would. I went to a Norwegian language camp one summer, so I can forstår mas snakke litt, I can understand a lot. I can speak a little.
Right. You can limp along whenever you're over there.
Right. Yep. And that was my best buddy that I grew up with, and his family that we went with. They called us. They called Bonnie and I New Year's Day, probably 4 years ago at this point. Said, "Hey, we're going to make a family trip to Norway, and we want to take our favorite Norwegian with us." So that was our invite to go along.
Right. So I want to go back to Mexico real quick. Did anybody down there seem like things are getting out of control with the cartel?
No, not at all. The area, the town of San Quintin, we really didn't go into town, but there was no talk of it. There was no issues. Nobody seemed afraid of it or anything like that. It felt very safe, and considering that we stayed in a real confined area, that lodge area, the dock was right there. There was really no reason to leave that area, and nobody wanted to come and mess with us. We didn't bring anything to the table that they would want, unless they were looking for people to kidnap. But I will tell you, I don't think any of us were so wealthy that it would be worth their time to do that.
I'd be shit out of luck if they done me for wealth and wanted some ransom for my family.
Yeah. I'm sure they concentrate. They probably know where the groups of people are that really have that kind of money to make it worth their time. And we are so far off the beaten path there that, once again, not worth their time. I was super comfortable there. Now, I did have a friend a couple of weeks earlier than that. He went to Laguna Madre redhead hunting, and when I talked to the group that we were with, saying, "Man, that would really be fun," they said that Ramsey doesn't run the trips right there because he's not 100% confident that that's a very safe area.
That's pretty shady down there.
Whatever outfitter, pardon?
That's pretty shady down there right now.
Yeah, that, and I try to be even more careful. It's like with my job, I had to do a travel tracker to explain everywhere that I go, and I don't know if it would help that much. I always keep whatever country I'm going to. I keep their embassy's phone number in my phone. And,
see, I'm just always worried I'm going to get to these places and like the people that I'm going to aren't on the up and up of what the dangers actually are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not going to tell you because they don't want to cost themselves a piece. Like, did you?
Right.
I never felt unsafe in Puerto Vallarta. Did you?
I never felt safe. I never felt unsafe in Puerto Vallarta, but I don't know.
Andy's a nervous Nelly, anyways.
1,000%. I also like. It's a well-populated area. It's a big touristy place. I don't know how much, these duck camps are a touristy place that the Mexican government wants to make sure that there is no riffraff.
I have a contingency plan everywhere I go.
What's your contingency plan?
When we're in Puerto Vallarta, if something would have happened, we'd get to the airport and we would take a flight to Tijuana and we could drive across the deal there. Wasn't worried about that.
It was an hour drive to the airport.
From
the resort.
That's my.
And you got to go through the city and where shit's popping off.
Wasn't worried about that. In Cancun, I used to think, you know what? We could rent a car and drive home.
No,
there ain't no way in hell. Because if I was in Cancun, I'd do the same thing. I'd fly to Tijuana because it's close to the airport to get across the border. But I would not drive along the Texas border. There's no way in hell right now you could pay me to drive across the border in Texas to Mexico.
No.
I'd be scared to death. And that's at Laguna Madre. I've seen a lot of guys hunting down there lately, and they're killing a bunch of redheads. But, man, that's a dangerous, dangerous place right now.
So, and I think that's why Ramsey doesn't do his trips out of there. And I think he is only going to send his clients places he's comfortable.
Sure.
Yeah,
with.
What you want to be. Now, you just got back from, is that a Les Cuba painting behind you?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's a Les Cuba. That's a good looking. I like that one with the ring necks in the middle. How was Las Vegas? How was the Ducks Unlimited Las Vegas? Was that a pretty cool trip?
Oh man, that was fantastic. So at the national convention 2 years ago, May, in Las Vegas, Garth Brooks donated a night to conservation. So one night concert, it was 19 February. He donated the whole thing to DU to sell and fill. DU worked it out with Caesar's Palace to do a package of 2 nights in the hotel and the concert. And depending where you sat, the prices, ranged $1,000 to $3,500, and it was really a great time. Caesar's is a fantastic hotel to stay at, and that was the 3rd time I'd seen Garth Brooks. He just puts on an absolutely wonderful show. He played all his old tunes, and I didn't realize he must be a great guy to work for, because his employees, his band members, have been with him, some of them since 1988 when he started. So the newest guy had been with them 4 years. They called him the rookie, but everybody else had been with him for a few decades, or 4 years to 30 some years.
I had a couple of friends there, and they said they had a really good time.
I've talked to people that have gone and seen Garth Brooks in person, and they say the concert's phenomenal. What was it like? But was it like a big show with all the hoopla, or was it more like of a smaller scale type show?
It was a big show with all the hoopla.
It was.
Everything was times 2. 2 drummers and drum kits, 2 organs. Gosh, must have been 3 or 4 or 5 guitarists.
How many people were in the crowd?
It was 3,700.
See, that's a pretty small show. I mean, compared to what he's
he's not playing.
He plays
it's
arenas.
not a stadium deal. Yeah, that's a small.
Right. That's why I didn't know if since it was only 3,700 people, if he scaled it back and kind of.
Boy, no, not at all. And it was really cool. He really acknowledges his band members too. One of them, he brought him up, introduced him, and said, hey, he'd been recently inducted into the Fiddlers Hall of Fame. Another one is a Grammy Award-winning songwriter, and he had him sing his song. I don't remember what it is, but you'd recognize it from the radio. Then another one, it was one of the backup singers, an older black gentleman. He came up, and they were talking, and it turned out, I'm sure you've both probably seen Animal House. I know
Yep.
Jeff has
many
at a minimum.
times.
And so remember the guy that sang "Shout" in the black bar when
Yep.
they all went
The black
there?
guy.
Yeah,
He's still alive?
He is one of Garth Brooks' backup singers.
No shit. That sucker was old in
Yeah.
1975.
Right? Yeah, that dude's got to be mid-70s at least.
Otis was his name.
Well, this wasn't Otis Day.
No, but that was
it
the
was
name
one
in
of
the
the
movie.
singers.
In the movie, it was Otis.
Okay, yeah, but they had a big screen, and they played that segment of the movie that he sang in, and he sang "Shout" to the crowd, and everybody was into it. 2/3 of the time, people are on their feet, singing along, clapping. It was really a good time. I felt like it was informal. I don't know how the rest of his shows there are, but it felt pretty informal and really fun.
He's got so many bangers. I mean, he could go on for a couple hours just playing hits. I don't want to hear the new stuff. I don't want to hear any of his new stuff. Play me.
I thought you were going to get on to me.
Play me Friends in Low Places. Play The Dance. Play Baton Rouge. Play Much Too Young. Play the hits. Don't give me any of your new crap because it's probably not any good. Give me the hits.
Andy, I had Baton Rouge stuck in my head for 3 days after that.
I guarantee you.
That's his best song, I think. The Dance is great,
that's a
but
great
Baton
one.
Rouge is a party song.
It registered on the Richter scale when he played it at
LSU?
At LSU.
Well, hell yeah.
Now, was that part of the stadium tour?
Yes.
Yeah, he spoke about that. It sounded like he really had a good time doing the stadium tours. He talked about that a good bit.
I would love to go see him. I think it'd be a great concert. Be a great concert.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be stopping anytime in the near future. He's probably going to be leaving Vegas, but
He's hitting the road.
he'll probably
Is that what he's hit?
Pardon?
He's hitting the road.
I don't know. He didn't mention it, but I mean, he's been there for a couple of years. I'm not sure how long people do a residency for. I mean, I guess if you're oh, Wayne Newton, you do a residency for frickin' 40 years, but I don't think most people do that.
Kenny Chesney's fixing to be there. We're going to go see him at the Spear, I guess, this summer is what Michelle wants to go to. And they said that's an amazing place, and he's supposed to be there. I think he's got like 16 or 20 different dates he's going to be there.
I think Garth played in Lubbock a couple years ago because I think I had friends that went and saw him in Lubbock. I think.
Now, Mike, are you going to be at Memphis at Ducks?
That is my goal right
Good.
now. Got to kind of see. So we have a deal. So we've got 5 kids and 9 grandkids, and when the grandkids turn 7, we take them to Disneyland. So we got the 3rd round of 7-year-olds coming the end late summer, early fall, and so I gotta make sure I've got everything paid for to do that. But
we're doing Disney World this year with our grandkids.
That's a super fun place too.
Mike, I don't know.
I don't know. I think me and Andy are 100% together on this deal. Is that I'm glad my grandkids want to go, because if it wasn't for my grandkids, I promise you I would never go again.
We could go to Bora Bora for about what we're
Yes.
paying to go to Disney World.
Yes.
You know, watching 7 years old. That's why we kind of chose that age.
Yeah.
They're big enough to do most of the rides, but everything is just still super cool to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love our grandkids, and we really enjoy that opportunity to take them to go do that.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and you're right. Once we get there and kind of see the kids' eyes light up, that's going to be worth it. I was shocked that my kids want to meet some of the characters. I thought they were kind of out of that, but
Oh, really?
yeah. Jameson, I know Jameson said he wants to meet Mickey, and I just really kind of thought that we were past any of that. And obviously I've got boys, so the princesses and all that, I could see more if they were young girls wanting to meet the princesses. But being the fact that they're boys, I was kind of shocked that they wanted to meet any of the characters. I can't remember who my oldest wanted to see, but yeah, Jameson wanted to meet Mickey and maybe something else. I don't know if they have like Avatar and shit like that.
No, I'm looking forward to going to. We're going to Universal and Disney. I'm looking forward to going to the Hogwarts stuff, their Harry Potter stuff. That I love the books. I can't wait to go see that. I'm really looking forward to that as much as the grandkids are. But that's all I'm looking forward to. I can promise you right now.
I would like to take Bonnie to go do that. She really enjoyed the books and the movies. But yeah, no, with the kids and the grandkids, we got them the little autograph books that they can take through and get the characters to autograph. We're going to do breakfast with the characters. We're staying at the Disneyland Resort there, and that since we're taking kids and grandkids, if anybody needs to catch the monorail back for a nap or something, that makes that real simple to do and doesn't affect the rest of the group. Then my cousin that I grew up with that is super close in my age, and we did a lot stuff together as kids. She lives about a mile from there, so we can always go chill at their house and hang out in the pool or something.
Yeah.
We went to Disney World. We didn't grow up with much money, so I didn't get to go on a lot of trips as a kid growing up. But we went to Disney World when I was between my 4th and 5th grade summers, and I still to this day can remember everything about that. I bought a mug. I mowed yards, and I saved me some money. And I mean, I didn't have a lot of spending money, but I bought me a Donald Duck coffee mug or a mug, and I had that mug at my mom's house up until last time I was at that house, and I'll never forget that. But I remember that trip as a kid and how much fun it was for me, and so I want my grandkids to have the same memories. It's different things, but just it's making memories for those kids that'll last a lifetime. And I'm happy for my grandkids, but I would much rather. I even tried to talk them into we could rent a house in the Bahamas for a week on a nice island, a beautiful home, and they want to go to Disney World and Universal. So we're going to be there 8 days. So I will.
Well, that is lots of time.
Oh, yes, it is. Gosh almighty.
Now, from there, maybe make a trip to Kennedy Space Center.
We've done that.
That's okay. All right. Yeah, that's really cool. I've done that too. I have a brother that lives in Melbourne there, and we've spent a little time with him and done the touristy stuff around there. I went to recruiting school in Pensacola, so I got to see that part of the state quite a bit, drive around there on weekends.
Yeah, I don't. We're going to be 3 days at Universal, 3 days at Disney, and then we've got a day doing a water. I don't know what all we're doing. Whatever. My daughter-in-law is our travel agent. She's got everything figured up. So it'll be a good time with the kids and the family. And then we'll be at Memphis. We're going to have a Stanfield Hunting Big Honker podcast booth at the DU. First booth we've had in 5 years probably at a show. We're going to have our own booth at the Ducks. We'll be at Ducks.
I was really super happy to see DU jump in as a sponsor with you guys.
Yeah, they're
they're
fantastic.
What is your listenership these days?
It's growing and growing and growing and growing. It's different kind of stuff though, because we have so many different platforms we're on now. But it's still growing.
I am going to do a quick shout out to a friend named Nick Hofford who turned me on to you guys about 4 years ago. He had been working at Barker Ranch, which is a really premier puddle duck hunting spot in eastern Washington, and he came over to do a few days of sea duck hunting with me. And I told him I listened to a lot of podcasts. And hey, you ever listen to the Big Honker podcast? And I don't think I've missed too many episodes in 4 years. So
we really appreciate that.
We appreciate that. And when I get to Seattle at the end of next month, I'm going to contact you, and we'd love to take y'all out to eat dinner one night somewhere.
Bonnie and I would enjoy that very much. And, we could drive down and meet you, or we could have you up here. We've got some cool places in Kitsap County, and, what Paulsbo is called Little Norway. So there's a lot of nice restaurants on our waterfront.
Oh, we would love that. We're going to be, Payne lives in Tacoma, but we're going to go up around Seattle a bunch.
So we are about 45 minutes north of Tacoma, and we are a 35-minute ferry ride. If you jumped on in downtown Seattle and came to Bainbridge Island, and it's like a 15-minute drive from the ferry to downtown Paulsbo. So if you were in Seattle and wanted to come that route, or if you chose to take the ferry out of Port Angeles over to Victoria, we're a stop along the way. If you looked on a map and saw the Hood Canal Bridge, we're about 5 miles from that.
Is there traffic anywhere in the world that's worse than Seattle's?
I don't know if it's the traffic's worse or the drivers just suck.
Man, it's terrible there.
But, I know in our county and probably like Tacoma, you get folks from all over the country melded together to try and cohabitate on the roads. And you got people from Hawaii to people from Maine to people from Florida and everywhere in between. And they just don't drive the same. Some are pretty inconsiderate and some are slow as heck. And
Payne all the time and tells me, he goes, this is the worst traffic anywhere in the world. And he says it's because they can't, everything's funneled down along the water between the mountain and the water, and the roads are congested all the time.
Yeah, we don't drive around a lot, like take I-5 from Tacoma to points north. If we're going to Seattle, we'll park on the Bainbridge Island side, walk across, take an Uber to where we want to go, or really we can walk to the Seahawks, or to the stadium for football, walk to T-Mobile Park for baseball games. We really don't need to drive over there. And like last weekend, we went to up north of Seattle, north of Everett, to Marysville to a Ducks Unlimited dinner. And we took the Kingston to Edmonds ferry. So the only time that's tough is if I'm dragging my boat across to go to, I do a decent bit of hunting up at the Canadian border right now, right near there at Blaine. And fantastic sea duck hunting. But then I'll take the ferry, but it's $200 to take my truck and boat across.
Yeah.
And back.
Yeah, I've got to rent a car and figure out what we're going to do. But I love that area. We stayed at I can't remember the name of that town we went to. Ocean Shores.
Yeah.
We stayed there for.
Oh, yeah.
We stayed there for a week about 4 years ago and really loved it. And Washington's a beautiful state. There's no doubt about it. And Oregon, I love that area in Oregon too, the Astoria area. So,
hey, did you get to take your banded bird back to get mounted? Or
Yeah.
You did?
Oh, no, I did not.
You
bring
just
it
got to
back.
bring the
I've
band
already
back?
got mounted, Brandt.
Oh,
I
you
didn't need
weren't
to
worried about it?
go through the hassle. There's a lot of paperwork to bring a bird back.
Right.
So
Anyway, that came to me real quick. But go ahead with Oregon and Astoria.
no, I wasn't.
I'm sorry.
Well,
it's a very beautiful place.
I wasn't going to go there. What I was going to say is, yeah, Washington State has wonderful natural resources. I mean, we've got forests and desert, the coast, the Columbia River. So we have 27 species of ducks to hunt here and like 10 species of geese. And gosh, in a 3-day trip, a guy could probably get most of those.
Yes. Yeah. Washington is a very target-rich environment.
Beautiful place.
It is.
I know you're not a turkey hunter, but I think you got 3 subspecies of turkeys in Washington alone. So you can be sitting on third and never leave your state.
Yeah, you ought to make a trip up and hunt with Alex and Trevor.
that's
Those
too
guys
far.
seem to really be on it.
I'm not doing that. That's too far.
It's too far to go, huh?
Yeah, we really, we got these three distinct scenarios for waterfowling. We've got the coast and the salt water and everything that involves for all the sea ducks. We've got, the Columbia River where you get all your divers, redheads, bluebills, canvasbacks, ringnecks, and the Columbia Basin is just phenomenal mallard hunting. I don't know if you've been a long time reader of Wildfowl magazine, but they did a story on, desert ducks, they called it, and it was really centered on the mallard hunting in the Columbia Basin, and that has changed some. 40 years ago when I started hunting mallards over there, everybody kind of went to the Potholes Reservoir area and a lot of the tributaries around there. And now that mid-Columbia Basin, we've got a lot of corn complexes which really suck them in and has kind of changed the face of duck hunting in central Washington there, south central. But
so how many species do you have? How many species have you harvested?
I have not. I've never counted them. I probably should have. I think that I've probably got most of them. On the salt, I've got old squaw, harlequin, all 3 species of scoters. Obviously, buffleheads here and there. Most of the time, I'll give them a break.
Yeah.
I don't really target the mergansers. Although if I saw a nice hoodie, I probably would take him out and get him on the wall. But we got Barrow's goldeneye, common goldeneye. I love those barrows. They're just real pretty birds in hand. Then everything on the east side: mallard, widgeon, teal, gadwall. Redheads, canvasbacks, bluebills, ringnecks. I've
got a lot.
I don't. There's maybe a handful of the 27 I haven't shot. Maybe I've got them all.
Have you shot a Eurasian widgeon up there yet?
No, but I have seen them, and I do have some friends that target them, and they're able to glass them and
They're
get
getting
them.
to be more common.
They are, and people have become pretty familiar with where they like to hang out. And I don't know if you know much about a skull boat, but they are pretty deadly when you want to target a specific species. Pretty funny story. A buddy of mine had bought a skull boat, and he's like, "Yeah, you really ought to get out there with him." And he is 6'6" and more slender than me. And me at 6 foot, and I was probably 230 at that time. We scrunched up in this 16-foot skull boat. He's paddling, and he's got binoculars. We were going after a nice old squaw, and he would be like, "Yeah, just lay back. When I tell you, pop up and shoot him." And we'd sculled out, and you'd be like, okay, we're about 50 yards out from a nice squaw. It's going to be at about 1 o'clock off the starboard bow. And he told me, okay, it's about 20 yards out. Pop up and take it. Really cool way to harvest a bird.
What's a skull boat?
You'll have to Google it. It's a low profile boat with a single oar that comes out the stern.
Yep.
And they paddle it in a figure 8 motion, so that single oar can motor you through. And generally, like my buddies, it's got a set of oars that are tucked up under the gunnels, so that when you're ready to get back to the trailer, you can just sit up and row it that way.
It's like the boats they have in the Venetia and Venice. It's kind of how the same kind of.
Yep, exactly like a gondola.
Yes.
You got that single oar that's able to maneuver you through the water. Yeah, we got last October. My group that I travel with, my 2 best buddies and their wives, and Bonnie and I went and did a 2.5 week trip to the Mediterranean. Went to France, Italy, Spain, Croatia, Greece. I think that's it. But we spent 2 days in Venice on the way there, and we did a gondola ride. Super cool. Wouldn't miss out on that if you go that way.
Cool. You've had a cool life, Mike. I look forward to seeing you. I will holler at you when we get closer to that, and maybe set up a time, and hopefully we can go have dinner together one night.
That would be terrific. I just a couple of things about the Brandt trip that I had written down and failed to discuss. The chef at the resort there, the food was phenomenal. They did a great job. The chef's name was Javier, and that dude could cook. And they made Brandt several different ways for us while we were down there.
Was it good?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you've ever had Brandt or not.
Never.
But I would seriously compare it to filet mignon.
Really?
And he frequently cooked it in a sauvé type, where you boil it. And he had several different sauces. So he would cook it in sous vide. Then he would have a sauce going in a hot cast iron pan, sear each side, and then dribble the sauces across it. And oh my gosh, we had Brandt tamales one night. We had,
I'm picking the restaurant.
It was a whole lot of eating. About 4 o'clock, they would start serving us appetizers, and we would roll from a couple hours of eating appetizers into eating dinner. So I would highly
appetizers
recommend that
Brandt also?
Saint-Étienne trip. Pardon?
Were the appetizers Brandt also?
Yes.
Everything's Brandt.
Not everything we had. They served us sushimi, calamari.
Oh, wow.
Lots of shrimp. Shrimp's a big deal down there. One night we had the spiny lobsters, those langoustine lobsters. The food was phenomenal.
Well,
And well worth the time and money.
Well, when I come up there, I'm picking the restaurant because I'm not eating no damn goose. So I'm going to pick us a place to go eat that don't have a goose. Okay?
Y'all should eat at a Norwegian restaurant, Jeff.
I would like that. I would love to try a Norwegian because they're not going to eat goose or duck.
Well, maybe we'll make you lutefisk.
Oh, no way.
What's lutefisk? What's that?
Fermented shark stuff that's been
It's
buried
codfish.
underground.
It's codfish that has been dried out with lye, and then it gets reconstituted in water, and it's kind of like eating fish jello.
If you ever have to use the word reconstituted for a meal, it's probably not very good.
And hopefully you have time for this real quick.
Yeah.
My dad, growing up in Norway, they would catch fish all summer, grow vegetables, and the island that he grew up on would freeze. All the water would freeze, and the only way to get back and forth from there is by boat. And so they would fill the boat shed full of lutefisk, full of cod that's been dried and hung up. And then they would have a root cellar for the vegetables they grew. So through the winter, they really didn't have other sources of protein other than making this lutefisk, reconstituted this cod that they caught while the water was open. They would occasionally have a hole in the ice and get a seal to come up through and shoot. But other than that, they're pretty limited what they'd eat through the winter. Even when I was there, growing up as a kid, they just had outhouses. It was, pretty old style living in those islands in the southern parts of Norway.
Jeff just ain't never been hungry
A
enough.
lot of skinny people there is what she's telling you.
Probably.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. You didn't see a bunch of fat Americans.
No,
but
not at all.
I know you guys
Or
have
fat
spoken about
Norwegians.
this too. That was, over in Europe. The food was so fresh. The
Yeah.
food is, correct portions. It's a lot of healthy people, which is good because in Barcelona you don't want to go to the topless and nude beaches with a bunch of fatties. So
I just read today. I was reading a guy had just moved over here had been living in Europe for a couple of years. He said he got here and he said he's been sick for a week because of the food.
I don't doubt it.
He said I'm not getting into politics, but he said I'm telling you right now, RFK's got to get the poisons out of our food. He said just regular food. He said I ate salads. He said I'm eating the same stuff I ate over there because I've been sick the whole time. Because my body cannot get used to all this different stuff.
Here's a challenge for anybody. If you have a bottle of ranch dressing in your fridge, which you probably do, or any salad dressing, flip that bitch over and see how much sugar is in your healthy salad dressing.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. You're gonna get a day's serving just in your salad dressing so that you can eat healthy. So yeah.
So
Get that out of there.
So make the homemade buttermilk one.
Yep.
For everybody listening to you, we got our Boss Dove Hunt is September 15th through 18th. Come in on Monday, leave on Thursday. All your meals hunt. This is going to be the unleaded dove shell coming out by Boss. We have a special September 15th through 18th, $7.50 per person. Lodging meals, 3 morning hunts, 3 afternoon hunts. All your lodging meals be a great time. Going to be a full house up here. Holler at me if you're interested in that.
Mike, take him to get some of that good Norwegian food when you get Jeff up there, all right?
we'll at least get him a pack of lefts to take with
There
him.
you go.
I will come have some Norwegian food. I'm out on the reconstituted lie. Not doing that, but I would have seafood. One of my favorite meals I ever had was in Grand Marne, I think is how you say it, Minnesota. I had a Swedish fish stew, and it was as good one of the best meals I ever had in my entire life. And it was just a red tomato broth with salmon in it and leeks. It was very, very good. Great meal.
Yeah, I love some fish stew. If you guys ever make it up to Anchorage, Captain Cook Hotel, the restaurant in there, makes a wonderful fish stew.
I will have to try that if I get up that way. Mike, we appreciate you. I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and then we will hopefully see you again in Memphis this summer.
Great to talk to you guys, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Please be in touch, and we'll get it on our calendar.
I sure will, bud. Thank you very much, my friend. You have a
safe
great
up
day,
there,
and
Mike.
God bless you.
You too.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Interesting man. Been all over, done everything.
all over.
Really neat guys.
The skull boat looks interesting. Kind of like a kayak.
It's kind of like a P-row boat.
Yeah, a little bit.
They're just a little bit longer.
A little bit. Yeah.
And I bet you that's one of those things that once you learn how to paddle one, it's probably pretty easy.
Right.
But learning how to do it's probably not a very easy thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I just typed in, it's skull with a C, not with a K.
Yes.
If anybody's, I didn't know that, Jeff. I thought it was like the skull on your head.
You're young.
Your head skull.
You're young.
Get your skull cracked is what I thought. So.
It's like Boston Scally, the hats.
Sure. Yeah.
That's spelled with the
identical.
SC. Yep.
Identical. All right. That's all I got.
Thank y'all for listening. If you're interested in that dove hunt, let me know. Appreciate you. God bless you, and have a great week.
Bye-bye. Watch for deer. Check out all of our great sponsors. Go check out the Looking Glass podcast. Head over to their Patreon. Get subscribed. Lucky Duck, Mossberg, MLR Graphics, Stanfield Outfitters, Hemp Hill Farm. Use our promo code BHP. Getting Old Sucks. Use CBD. Mallard Bay, Mitchell Chevrolet, Shin Gear, Dirty Duck Coffee, Dive Bomb Industries, Ducks Unlimited, Pacific Calls. It's time to start buying turkey calls. Use our promo code BHP25 and Boss Shot Shells.